Tonight, talking about SmackDown, talking about Monday Night Raw, we're talking about Dynamite, and every little snippet of information in between. It's episode 52. Let's do this, people. Put this here. Hello, everyone. Episode 52, off and running. Smells like Wrasslin. Here with the Dynamite post show and a week in review of wrestling. We got a lot to talk about, so let's get right to it. SmackDown came and went. This was the show that everyone was kind of looking forward to. Obviously, they were going to save the big moments for SmackDown, because SmackDown, for all intents and purposes, really is the A show for the WWE. Very interested to see what was going on. Obviously, they left this segment to the final segment of the night, which I'm not surprised. Roman comes out. Basically, the way he's looking at this is, Sammy's just one of those guys who just wants to ride his coattails. He's one of those guys, Roman being in a place of fame and power, not many people, according to him, not many people could, come to him and ask them what they could do for him. It's more like what he could do for them. So he kind of lumps Sammy along with those people. Sammy shows up out of nowhere. A fight ensues. Obviously, they're not going to really let Sammy get one over on Roman. But Sammy does it. He throws the gauntlet down. He challenges Roman for the undisputed Universal Heavyweight, long-ass name of a title, motherfucker. And it's going to happen at Elimination Chamber. Now, that was a smart way to go. Now, I know that we talked about this a little last week, but it really is a tightrope walk that the creatives over in WWE have to do right now. Okay? Because Cody and Roman is the right decision. And it seems like they're moving forward with that. They've been able to put forth the story, and we'll talk more about this when I go over what happened on Raw. But they put over, they have to put over Roman and Cody as the main attraction, Whatever happens between Sammy and Roman, that has to come to some sort of finality at Elimination Chamber. Now, granted, I'm saying that, and I'm also saying in the same breath that Sammy and Kevin Owens should end up being the tag team champs. I'm talking about Sammy going for Roman's belts, Sammy fight, all that shit. that ends at Elimination Chamber, and that has to end in the eyes of the fans. And the best way for it to end in the eyes of the fans is you give them something else for them to chew on. And that something else has to be delicious. And that delicious thing is going to have to be Sami and Kevin versus the Usos at WrestleMania for the tag belts. It very well could be like the main event for one of the nights, to be quite honest. I mean, who knows how they're going to run main events? But I mean, it's the hottest story in the company, let alone the hottest story in wrestling. 2 major matches are happening based on that one storyline alone that's now splintered off into other successful storylines. Again, we'll go over that when we talk about Raw. But I feel like that might be the right decision. Have one night leave with Sami and Kevin holding the tag titles high. And then the next night you got Cody versus Roman for all the marbles. And that's the final nail in the coffin for the Bloodline that thus ends their reign. And the reign of Cody can begin. They could roll him out to be the pseudo Cena that they were looking for, an established guy, but he could be, because it's obvious that's one of the reasons why he left AEW, because he didn't want to go heel. I mean, he cut that infamous promo basically telling all the fans, you want me to go heel? It's not going to happen. I want to be a good guy. Like, for all intents and purposes, a lot of people had like their own theories as to why Cody left AEW and how. But to be quite honest, I mean, how much, like, I don't understand how much more they could have done for him. He said he didn't want to win the title. They did that. They made him they made him a super over babyface. Like, there were so many instances for him to win the belt. You know what I mean? Like, he technically should have been the guy to take it off of Jericho. And it should have been the reign of Cody, and then Cody ends up dropping it to Moxley in some sort of like face versus face like match. And then that's how I think it should have went down. Because Cody was like the biggest baby face in all wrestling after that match that he had with Dustin. You know what I mean? Like, it was just better that way. But no, he didn't want to win. He didn't want to win the belt. Then he had the potential of being one of the best heels in the business outside of Max, and he didn't do it. He wanted to go face. So it's like, what do you do with a guy who can't win the main title and you're only going to book him one way as a babyface? You know what I mean? And like, what? You're going to have a babyface, he's going to lose, he's going to win. He's going to lose, he's going to win. But he's never going to go break bad. Which means eventually, like, the crowd's going to get tired of his act. So, like, there was nothing left for Cody in AEW. Because to be quite honest, I don't know who thought this was a good idea for him not to win the title. And who thought it was a good idea to give him the choice to never go heel. I mean, what else are you going to do with the guy? There's nothing left to do. So now what he's going to do is he's going to go to WWE where they book people like that. Where they book a guy to just be face forever. So that's what I'm assuming is going to happen with Cody. Cody's going to go on like this babyface Cena-esque run where he's going to be the guy that always overcomes, just like Cena. That was his shtick. They always put one challenge after another in front of Cena, and he always seemed to rise to the challenge. So that's what they're going to do. That's how I think they're going to book Cody. They're going to book him he's always going to be the never give up semi-underdog who he's going to pull through. He always overcomes, but they're always going to throw bigger challenges in front of him. To be quite honest, he should have been the guy coming in at 1 or 2 at the Rumble and winning it because it fit his character. This guy who always fights. This guy who always goes through adversity. He's the guy who fought with a torn pec. He's the guy who was Stardust, left, became a name for himself, and then came back. The guy's always been fighting. So why did you give him the easy way out at the Royal Rumble, coming in at number 30 and then beating a fucking exhausted Gunther? You know, it just doesn't make any fucking sense. So do I think they could be doing a little bit better with the booking of Cody? Absolutely. Do I think it's the right call to make him the guy in the company? 100%. 100%. Because I talked about this last week. What do you do with Sami Zayn after he wins the belt? You know what I mean? What are you going to do with Sami Zayn after he wins the belt? Because he has to beat people and then also establish them. The problem with Roman, because he was being booked by Vince, is that Roman was beating everybody, which meant no one really was ever a guy you could ever take seriously to beat Roman. That's another reason why Cody is the guy. Because he came back, it's a clean slate, he had this massive reaction at WrestleMania, He beats one of the top stars of the company, Seth Rollins, twice, one of which was the main event for a pay-per-view where he had a torn fucking pec muscle. Like, the guy has been built to be the guy to beat Roman. Because in the eyes of the WWE fans, they don't see Stardust anymore. They don't see a jobber anymore. They see as a guy who should be taken seriously. He comes out to serious pyro. He has big-ass reactions. This is the guy who you want to take over for Roman Reigns. You know what I mean? But in the process, they've ended up bringing out this underdog awesome storyline with Sami Zayn, where he was a guy where nobody on the roster liked him. He saddled himself up with some friends in the bloodline. He had to win their hearts and in the process win the hearts of the fans to the point where they wanted him to succeed in this massively over heel group. And the tide rose all ships. They all got bigger together. Fans like myself, Laps fans, I'm tuning in on Monday and Fridays to find out what's going on with the bloodline. All right? So they're doing their job. That's why Raw has been going from like they were always sitting at a 1 point. First they were at 1.7 million with Vince for years. For years. It was their new low, but it was for years because they dropped below 2 million. It was a big deal, right? Then they were dropping around, after COVID, they were hovering around like 1.4, 1.5 million. You know what I mean? So like they were always, they were still the top dog. You know what I'm talking about? Now they're doing like 1.8, 1.9. I mean, like, granted, the NFL's not on, but, like, I was expecting to do, like, maybe 1.7 again. But 1.8, 1.9, and also a 2 million for the Raw that happened after Rumble. That's great. SmackDown's doing awesome. They're still over 2 million. So, like, it's working. It's working. But Sami Zayn is not the guy. He has been with this company for years, being booked the same way. You know what I mean? The crowd only sees him the same. No matter what anyone says, even though they love him and they want him to win the belt, he's still Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn hasn't had a win over someone significant in a really long time. And now he's going to go and he's going to start off by beating Roman fucking Reigns, the guy who's had the belt for over 800 days. And then after that, you're going to give him a title run where he's not expected to take a pin. He's going to beat who? He's going to beat guys like Cody. He's going to beat guys like Seth Rollins. It doesn't work out, man. Sami Zayn is Sami Zayn. At the end of the day, that's who he is. Like, that's what happened to guys like fucking Kofi. Everyone wanted him to win, but no one thought, like, all right, who are we going to have Kofi beat now? It's not believable that he could beat a guy like Braun Strowman because guys like Cody have been fed to Braun Strowman for years to put them over. He's the guy that's supposed to get beat by Braun Strowman. So you know what they did? They put him in there with a guy who was smaller than him, but had credibility, had a name, and could wrestle. And that guy's name was Daniel Bryan. And that was the major feud for the major feud for Kofi. All right? And then all of a sudden, Brock Lesnar came back at the end. Like, it was it. It was over. So what I'm trying to say is, like, he hasn't been built up that way to the point where now you're going to start having this guy in title matches, being the number one guy, beating the dude who's the longest reigning champion in history. I'm sorry it doesn't work out that way. Cody has been built to be that guy. He has no blemishes. You need that kind of guy to take the belt off from Roman. Then you start this slow transition of conditioning the fans that, hey, listen, your champs are not going to have 3-4 year reigns anymore. Like, I expect Cody to hold on to the belt until, I don't know, maybe possibly Royal Rumble next year. Maybe he holds on to it for like a little less than a year. You know what I mean? They have to start shortening these title reigns and making it so that there's a more consistent revolving door of champions. Because let's face it, Roman's been holding up the line with 2 belts on 2 brands for the last several years. And there's no room for these characters to grow. You know, that was the great thing about NXT. Like, guys were small, and then they started winning belts, and then they won the main belt, and then they lose, and then they went on to the main roster. There was a progression of their character. The problem that was happening is that the faucet was turned off the second they got to the main roster, and there was no more creative juice left to drink. And all of a sudden, these guys just got there and just stopped doing anything. You want to know why they stopped doing anything? Because only a handful of guys held on to the belts. And then to make matters worse is that they weren't putting over the belt. So even if you did win a belt, it was useless. The only belt that made any sense was the belt being held by the top guy. And the top guy is Roman Reigns. And he's been holding on to it for years. So guys couldn't have feuds, build up, have builds, have momentum, go on, win belts, have title reigns. And then what they could do is then they lose those belts, but you're going to use those guys who have credibility to put together the next crop of guys, and so on and so forth. Do you want to know why this is imperative to do in wrestling? Because wrestling has no off season. Wrestling is live every single week. So that means you have to book for today and for tomorrow. And not only for tomorrow, but you have to book for next year and the year after that and the year after that. Okay? So it's imperative for these title reigns to start getting a little bit shorter than one guy holding two belts for several years. All right? WWE is big enough that they could actually run two rosters and have two belts and build up two crops of talent. Three crops of talent, actually, if you count NXT. You know what I mean? Like, they have something that I wish AEW had, which is ample television time. Because ample television time means that you have more storyboard to tell stories to build up your characters and keep the pipe, the flow going of creativity going on into the future. So, I mean, I think they're doing a great job. And to top it off, so they did the smart thing on Raw, which is they invoked the name of Dusty a lot, all right? They're gonna try and do things to make it so that the crowd isn't incensed to boo. And let's be honest, nobody is fucking booing Dusty Rhodes. It makes them feel good to chant Dusty. Why? Because Dusty was a sweet old man, a legend, and he's dead. So you're gonna want to talk about Dusty a lot. You're gonna want to bring heartfelt stories into it. And then you're gonna want to bring a guy who could pull the strings of an audience no better than Paul Heyman. Cody is good at pulling at heartstrings, but Heyman was the catalyst. Heyman is good at getting you to hate somebody. All right? They're doing that great with Roman, and they're gonna do it again. And they need to build some sort of personal stakes between Roman and Cody, because there needs to be something juicy waiting at the end of the rainbow for when this program with Sammy becomes Kevin and Sammy against the Usos. All right? And it needs to be something that people are like, okay, cool. I'm happy with this. I want Sammy to win a title. He's going to get to win a title with his best friend who he saved, and he put it all on the line. It all flows perfectly. Now you got personal stuff being brought. You got legacy. You have family legacy between both. The story's already there, all right? Cody Rhodes, family legacy. Roman Reigns, family legacy. Roman is living out and trying to eclipse Dwayne in terms of family legacy, which I can't wait for them to invoke the name of The Rock in this, because that's the only way that Cody, I really feel like, is going to get a nice dig at Roman. Because outside of everything else, it's just all going to be cliches. But no one has invoked the name of The Rock yet. So I feel like they're holding on to that nugget for one of Roman and Cody's face-to-faces. All right? Cody trying to almost redeem his family's legacy, or even so much as surpass his father, being that his father wasn't the guy. Cody's about to be not only the guy, but he's about to main event WrestleMania. Two things that I don't think Dusty ever really achieved at this level. So the story's already there. You need to start making the crowd start caring about that, and you start sowing the seeds for that right now. You don't do that a week before Mania or 2 weeks before Mania. You do it months before Mania, because then you have to let it grow. That was one of the great things that happened with the Bloodline storyline. It was one of their best long-term stories in recent memory. Why? Because they let that thing build, and seeds were planted, and they were watered, and they grew, and they bore fruit, and that fruit bore seeds into more. That's how long-term storytelling is done, all right? So, and Sammy and Kevin have a very long-term history. So it makes sense that Sammy turns to his longtime friend / enemy, Kevin Owens, to put the end to his new family, the Bloodline. It's all there. Just let it be. But then all of a sudden, I can't help myself. I'll go online and I want to check on what's going on in the wrestling world. And I got people talking about like, oh, Sammy should be the guy. You fucking out of your mind? That's stupid. And also, I don't think that all the fans actually want that to happen. I think there's a good portion of fans who see the benefit in Cody winning, and that there's actually people who actually follow Cody Rhodes and want this to happen. So I think it's misinformation to think that, like, oh, the majority of the fans want Sammy to win. Bullshit. I think it's a lot more complicated than that. And I think that the reactions by the crowd are proving it, because, yeah, they did say Sammy's name, and they did cheer Sammy. And Cody did put over Sammy and say, hey, listen, I hope it's me and you. He's not rooting against Sammy, which is smart. You don't want to root against a hot guy, because then you end up being fucking Batista. But still, he laid the groundwork for a story between him and Roman that could be just as compelling, if not more, leading into WrestleMania. So I think now the only problem is that, like, the other stuff that's going on both Raw and SmackDown, I'm not really interested in. Judgment Day, interested in. The stuff that's going on with Baron Corbin, I could give a flying fuck. All right? The stuff that's going on in the women's division, I don't even care. Alexa Bliss now is taking more time off. Just fucking retire. Just retire. You're barely in the ring anyways. Your character has been destroyed beyond recognition. They still, for some reason, want to tie you together with Wyatt. And unless that payoff is worthwhile, like, I don't see the point. So unless they start doing something significant with Alexa Bliss, who does actually have some in-ring talent, they just have to give her better material and storylines to work with, and she would be a great asset to that division. But instead, they give her fucking bullshit, and she's barely on TV. And now it's just like, I don't care anymore. I don't care. Unless they turn it around, she should just leave. She should go into Hollywood and do acting. She should be a model or an influencer or whatever the fuck, or do nothing. She's made enough money. She's set for the rest of her life. She's made enough of a name for herself that she could actually do things outside of wrestling. I actually think she was actually a bikini bodybuilder at one point in time. She could fucking go back and do that. I don't care. But the stuff that she's doing in the ring, the stuff that she's doing in WWE is not worth watching, in my opinion. It's not worth watching. Let's go on with tonight's Dynamite review. It was a stacked card tonight. And the wrestling tonight was awesome. Couple of surprises thrown in there, but let's go through it. So we had a stacked card tonight to go through it. The Elite, consisting of Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson, go up against Top Flight and AR Fox. Top Flight obviously consisting of Dante and Darius Martin. The Bunny goes up against Jamie Hayter for the AEW Women's title. The Acclaimed, the current AEW Tag Champs, put their belts on the line against the Guns. Rush versus Bryan Danielson. And another step in Bryan Danielson's quest to fight MJF for the belt at Revolution. Speaking of MJF, also MJF was facing Konosuke Takeshita, with the stipulation that if Takeshita wins, he gets a AEW title opportunity. And then they had the Garcia Guevara Gauntlet, which meant Ricky Starks had to beat both members of he had to beat Matt Menard and Angelo Parker, and then he had to beat either Sammy Guevara or Daniel Garcia, so that he could get a chance of fighting Jericho. It's just excuse me. All this shit is still the same. You know what I mean? Like, these like gauntlet matches. First off, I actually liked Matt Menard and Angelo Parker's new music. I thought it was pretty cool. I just don't want to see them with a faction anymore. I want them to be like a tag team again, and get into like tag team matches and like with actual like tag teams that are known, and like get some wins. You know, I feel like they're a great tag team. They have good chemistry. They could talk on the mic. I just don't think that they need to be under the umbrella of Jericho anymore. The same thing with Sammy Guevara and Daniel Garcia. I kind of want that whole group to be disbanded. You know, I'm tired of Jericho leading factions. I think some time away from television would do his character good. I mean, I'm sure that he wouldn't mind the break from the road and the grind, but like, I just don't think the guys that are under his wing need to be under his wing anymore. I think Sammy Guevara is already an established character. People may hate him for their various regions, but he's an established character. think the same thing is going on, with Garcia. I think he is an established character. I think 2.0 already has an established tag team. I think Jake Hager is already established. He could be the heavy. He could be dumb comedy. He could do all of that. I think Ty Mello has already established herself in that women's division. I think Anna Jay needs to be let go. I haven't seen much improvement in her in-ring, in her character, in her promo work, in anything. I think she's talented enough that she'll land on her feet elsewhere. I don't wish her to be destitute, but as a consumer, and I'm consuming a product, her product is the one thing that I am least likely to consume if I'm sitting in front of the TV and watching it. I want to see talented women's wrestlers and compelling women's characters. And in my opinion, she's neither. I think Ty-Melo has a huge amount of upside. She could wrestle in the ring, and I think she could definitely be like a character going forward. To be quite honest, I mean, I wouldn't mind if they just had her just continuously speak Brazilian, and they did a translator, and then she speaks English every once in a while, like Takeshita. But I think she's smart to try and learn English because she knows that that's how you break into the mainstream. So, hey, she's great in the ring. She's got a great look, and like I said, she's already an established character. So I just kind of done with the Jericho Appreciation Society. I'm done with Jericho groups in general. I'm not, annoyed. I'm just tired of the gimmick, and I would like to see something better and fresh. And I think Jericho is a creative enough mind that he got, given enough time away from the camera, he could create something that's a master stroke of genius again, like he's been doing. I'm going to enjoy this fucking vanilla Coke because my throat is goddamn dry. And yes, I know I should be drinking water. Fuck off. All right. So let's start with the review. So they started off the night with MJF versus Takeshita, and I like that because I don't even think it really had any commercial breaks that I can remember. But it was an awesome fucking match. You want to know why? Because Konosuke Takeshita is a fantastic wrestler. And he's a likable underdog. And he's an underdog that everybody knows was never going to win against Maxwell Jacob Friedman. So it all worked out. There was no worry about me thinking, oh, maybe people are going to root for Takeshita to have a title shot instead of Danielson. No. Why? Because Takeshita is not booked to be the guy yet. He's booked to be a likable underdog who has great matches and could beat some guys and loses to the big guys, which is okay. The kid is super young, and you just have him have great matches and build up a body of work, and then one day, boom, pull the trigger and send that motherfucker straight to the moon. MJF is a phenomenal wrestler. He's a phenomenal talker. He's one of the great talents of my generation, literally. Like, no one has splashed onto the scene in recent memory like MJF has, and who's like a rookie. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think anybody in the last several years has stood out in terms of rookie status. No fucking way. MJF is awesome. So it was a great match. Takeshita ends up getting low blowed by the ropes. MJF worked the arm the entire time. Beat him with the salt of the earth, the Fujiwara arm bar, and made Takeshita tap. Afterwards, laid him out with the Dynamite Diamond ring, busted him open. That caused Danielson to come out. I think, yeah, did Danielson come out? Yeah, Danielson came out and for the save, but the damage was already done. Danielson, obviously, of course, has a match later on that evening against Rush. But listen, Danielson is not beating MJF. I'm going to put that out there right now. I think that no way you take the belt off of MJF right now to give it to Bryan Danielson. Bryan Danielson is a guy who, win or lose, he's always going to be one of the most over people in the company because he's Bryan fucking Danielson. So he's a guy that you could go and give him a string of matches and have him win and have him put on bangers and lose to a young, up-and-coming main guy like MJF. So that's fine. Obviously, the best is yet to come for Danielson. There's still a lot of shit that he could do. He could still have any matches that he wants. He could go into the G1 this year, for all we know. He could go into the G1. He definitely has another match that he has to have with Omega That's definitely going to happen. I'm hoping that happens at the next Grand Slam, because that was the only thing that, if you want me to be honest, you want to know where those 10,000 fans that were at Arthur Ashe the first time, and why they weren't there the second time? Because how are you going to beat a card that has Bryan Danielson versus Kenny Omega? You can't. No matter what undercard you have, there is no match that you could put on that could meet that kind of awesomeness. All right? So they have to do that again. You want to go and you want to have a big crowd in Arthur Ashe again? That's the fucking match that you put on. So Danielson has a lot of great matches ahead of him. He could definitely beat a guy like Omega, because Omega already has a belt. It's not like he's going to lose it. He'll still be over in the trios division. Omega's another guy who has an impressive body of work, who has enough wins that if he's going to take a loss to anybody, it could be to a guy like Bryan fucking Danielson. Danielson still hasn't had a match with Zack Sabre Jr. He could have fucking matches with Okada if he wanted to. There's a lot more that they could do with Bryan Danielson in AEW, and none of it has anything to do with him winning a title. So I'm totally okay with this. MJF is going to have a run. MJF is going to hold on to the belt until 2024. The only reason I say this, and I say this after I went on this whole long monologue about like long title reigns, like I said, I wouldn't mind Cody having like a year-long title reign. That's fine. But that's the max. And even then, I don't feel comfortable saying he should have a year-long title reign. But AEW is a different company. They're not even 10 years old yet. You know, MJF is supposed to be the guy of the future for that company if they could re-sign him in 2024. You know what I mean? So, yeah, you want to put him over as one of the most dastardly, the most historic AEW champions in their history, because he is supposed to be their guy going forward. This is how you start building the legend of MJF. He's already done everything else that he needs to do. It's time for him to have a title reign, and a monster one at that. All right? And it's going to be for at least a year. And it's going to lead into his contract. And then Tony is smart enough to be like, hey, listen, I'm going to use MJF to bring in ratings, whether I'm going to hold on to him or not. And it's going to be one of the best storylines in wrestling, because everyone's going to want to know, is MJF going to WWE or is he going to AEW? And what will happen is that he will be a monster heel if he leaves, and everyone, and either people will cheer the shit out of him in the WWE, which is all like the super fans over there that actually want AEW to fail, or you have him cheered because him betraying AEW is honestly the most heel move imaginable. And it would just further cement MJF as being one of the best wrestlers of our generation, no matter what brand he's on, no matter what show he's on. You know what I mean? So, like, that also is good for Tony, because right now, the only way you're going to find any information about MJF is through AEW programming. So by hook or by crook, Tony's still going to be able to ride ratings. And who knows, if he's smart, he could use that to build up another guy to supplant MJF to be that face. You know what I mean? A guy who you wouldn't mind winning the belt, who I honestly think it should be fucking Darby Allin. They're going to build up Darby Allin to be such an underdog babyface, and either A, it's just going to be one other step towards Darby eventually winning the belt, or I don't know. I could see MJF defending it at All Out, and then maybe losing it to Darby again, and then Darby has his reign like at like Revolution or maybe even Full Gear. They just have that moment for All Out, and that's pretty much it. But yeah, 100% right, 100% right. So we got in the chat the MJF will be a 2-time champion. Feel like this will be a year reign, but it's gonna be wild. Absolutely. And I think if you market it right, no matter where MJF goes, you have must-see television for like maybe 6 to 8 weeks leading up to his contract running out. And I think that's brilliant. I think that's fucking brilliant. That has the opportunity of being one of the most talked about wrestling storylines since the Bloodline. Because let's be honest, it's going to take a while for the WWE to ramp up another storyline that's to the level of engagement that the fucking Bloodline storyline has. So that's perfect time for AEW to swell up a nice juicy storyline to get people talking. All right? Because there's an entire industry waiting that makes money off of these two companies putting off good storylines. Yours truly included. AEW Women's Championship match, Jamie Hayter accompanied to the ring by Britt Baker and Rebel, defeated the Bunny with Penelope Ford in a title eliminator match. I'm sorry, I for some reason thought the belt was on the line, but I guess it was an eliminator match. Whatchamacallit. So it was just a straightforward match. You know what I mean? Like, I like Jamie Hayter. Hayter hits hard. She beat the shit out of the Bunny. The Bunny actually landed really hard on one of those exploder suplexes, but you know, they feel like the match kind of went its course. So they did this whole thing with Paige and Toni Storm. I mean, Saraya and Toni Storm at the end of the match. It was really weird because, like, Hayter's, like, celebrating. It seemed like the crowd kind of saw what was going on, but it was, like, weird for them to just play Jamie's song and her have no reaction to what was going on whatsoever. I don't like what's going on with Paige and Toni Storm. I think it's lame. I think them spray painting L on people and calling Leva Bates a loser and beating up people and just being like, baby girl with this and baby girl that. I think it's dumb. It's boring. I don't fucking care about it. That's all the time I'm spending on this episode talking about that shit. So I hope they really get their shit together. Lexi Nair goes into MJF's dressing room. He says Takeshita wasn't a match for a generational talent like himself. MJF tells this ridiculous story about how in high school he got into a car accident with a girl that he liked. And before the cops came, he switched seats to make it look like she was driving, so he didn't get any points on his license. And it was the most asshole story ever. Like, I honestly was shocked that they actually even went there, but it's actually refreshing for them to just see shocking television. So, like, it was just horrible. The guy's a fucking douchebag. But he's going to continue to build up that match between him and Danielson. They're going to have that Iron Man match at Revolution. And it should be awesome because, like I said, MJF is a phenomenal wrestler and he's a phenomenal character, and so is Bryan Danielson. So it's going to be great. Ricky Starks defeats Angelo Parker to advance in the Garcia-Guevara gauntlet. It really was a pretty quick win. Then he immediately defeated Matt Menard afterwards. Do I have to sneeze? Then Daniel Garcia defeats Ricky Starks because Jericho from the crowd gives him the Judas effect. I just don't see what's going on. Like, what the fuck? Like, this is like, he should have just had him win and then he fights him at Revolution. Like, why is it that fucking hard? You know what I mean? Why is it that hard? But, you know, they're going to keep on doing what they're doing, and I guess that's what it is. I guess they're going to draw it out. But I'm like, you know, they feel like they could have just drawn it out better. Because we got all of February and then March, and then that's when we get Revolution. Renee Paquette's backstage in the trainer's room with Takeshita. And they hear the door lock, and then all of a sudden Rush's music hits. Rush makes his way to the ring. MJF comes out, tells Aubrey Edwards, who he calls Sweet Cheeks, that Bryan Danielson is scheduled for a match to ring the bell and to start the match. But because Danielson isn't in the ring, they're going to start counting him out. So Aubrey slow counts, so to give Danielson as much time. Danielson breaks the door down. He runs into the ring. The match has already started. He immediately gets taken out by Rush. They have a banger of a match. These guys beat the ever-loving shit out of each other. It was a phenomenal match. Forearms here and slaps there and chops and slaps and kicks and all this shit, and it was awesome. But at the end of the match, it was Bryan Danielson with the victory. MJF quickly hits the ring. He hits Danielson with the Dynamite Diamond Ring, hits the Salt of the Earth, which is the Fujiwara armbar. He attacks security guards, and the commercial break hit with MJF not letting the submission maneuver go. Shivani's backstage with the guys from Impractical Jokers. I honestly don't give a shit. The Elite defeat AR Fox and Top Flight. They really kind of were like, I guess they knew that there was going to be a commercial break in the match, because at the beginning of the match, not much really happened. And then after the commercial break, it got ramped up to 11. And there were spots all over the place. These guys were super kicking each other left and right, backflips out of the ring, topes all over the place. And finally, it freaking ends with a V trigger and a One Ring Angel. Oh, actually, no, I'm sorry. It ends with a couple of V trigger and One Ring Angel attempts. Fox actually almost reverses a One Ringed Angel for a pin, but Omega actually reversed that and got the pin on him. So the Elite again retain and are still the AEW World Trios champions. Lexi Nair's backstage with Stokely Hathaway. Stokely Hathaway basically saying there's no cracks in the firm. All the problems stem from Hook. Hook comes up behind him, put him in an armbar, and told him to be cautious of his words. So I guess it's going to be, again, this ongoing feud between Hook and the firm. Hook obviously doesn't have Jungle Boy anymore. Jungle Boy has gone out on record saying he's branching off on his own and that tag team is at an end. So we'll see what more goes on with Hook, who now has more of a spotlight on Dynamite. He's no longer the guy winning matches on Rampage. In the shocker of the night, the Guns defeat the Acclaim to become the new AEW World Tag Team Champions. It was an okay match. The hijinks were just kind of whatever, you know what I mean? Like the ref gets bumped. Daddy Ass comes out there. He tries to stop the Guns from cheating. He ends up getting laid out with a belt shot. A couple of near falls. Anthony Bowens gets laid out with a belt after a roll-up pin attempt. The Guns pin the knocked out Bowens, and that's pretty much how it ended. And with the Guns as a check, I mean, it was an uncomfortably long period of dead air that happened after the Guns won the belt. Usually, when usually they go right up to the top of the hour. So like, usually as soon as someone wins, it's like, oh, we're signing off and goodbye. But there was like this whole explanation of like, oh, what's gonna happen now, blah blah blah. I don't know, but the reign of the Acclaim ends with kind of a whimper. It wasn't really in a big match. It wasn't, I mean, obviously they were trying to put over a young tag team who they want to establish, which is the Guns. And I do think that their characters could possibly have a good heel title run. You know what I mean? But like, they're going to have some significant victories. And if they're going to be the tag team that kind of just like cheats to win, then fine, make it creative. But the Guns have big shoes to fill, because the Acclaimed were very over as a tag team. Their gimmick was awesome. Their entrance was awesome. Their lead up to and their eventual victory over Swerve in Our Glory was very well done. So the Guns have big shoes to fill, and they have to be established as a young tag team. And this title reign has to mean something, because you do not want to devalue the tag belts in a division where they said, hey, we're going to have the best tag team division in the world. Well, I mean, a lot of their tag teams are in trios now, so how great is this tag team division now? I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in to another episode of Smells Like Wrasslin, episode 52. Next week again, we're gonna talk about the follow-up of this past episode of Raw on SmackDown. We're gonna talk about Rampage, Raw, and the next episode of Dynamite. So we'll definitely have a lot to discuss next week. And we have maybe a week or two left of this particular layout. Well, not really, just me recording in this particular room. And I'll be recording in another room in my house. So you'll notice a change in everything, but hopefully it's changed for the better. I definitely have to do a lot of testing on that before I go live. But anywho, I'd like to thank all you guys for tuning in. Thanks to Joseph in the chat for watching. Thank you guys very much, and I will see you all next week. Laters.